Good evening, my friends. I wonder where you are watching tonight. Wherever you are, join me in retelling an old story. A story that time has almost forgotten, but still whispers somewhere between walls, pages, and lingering dreams. In the dusty attic of a century-old house in Valladolid, Spain, a wooden box waits silently, patiently for someone to open it again. In 2024, Carmen Rodriguez, after the death of her grandmother, inherits the family's crumbling home. The air smells of cedar and time, and as she sorts through the items that have been there for generations, she stumbles upon an object that will quietly shatter everything she thought she knew about her family. It was a photograph, a delicate sepia-toned photograph dated 1911. On the back, someone had written in soft faded ink a simple description: the Rodriguez family. 5 people posed with careful formality. In the middle stood a man with a thick mustache and a gaze so serious it was almost uncomfortable. Beside him, a young woman held a baby in her arms while 2 little girls stood obediently silent in the stillness demanded by early cameras. Their clothes were the very best of all flat collars, ribbons, delicate lace fragments of a long-vanished Edwardian Spain. For more than 100 years, the photograph had lain dormant among other family relics, never questioned, only occasionally glimpsed. The family always believed they knew who they were looking at: Grandfather Tomas, his wife Mercedes, and their 3 children. Simple, no doubt, until Carmen realized something. The woman identified as Mercedes looked too young. Her face, soft, almost fragile, didn't belong to the mother of 3. And there was something unsettling in her eyes. Not the serene dignity of a mother, but tension, as if she'd been caught pretending to be someone else. Carmen couldn't forget it. The fleeting discomfort on the young woman's face lingered in her mind like a whisper. So she sought help from Dr. Miguel Herrera, a historian of early Spanish photography, whose office in downtown Valladolid was a strange mix of past and present glass lenses, scanners and shelves bent under the weight of forgotten faces. Dr. Herrera began his work slowly with reverence. The photograph, he decided, was a studio creation, its lighting too precise to be accidental, the background painted in the delicate curves of Catalan modernism. A gelatin silver print once produced in the city meant the family must have traveled for the portrait. A small clue, but not a discovery. It was the anthropometric analysis that changed everything. Using modern tools to measure faces preserved in time, Herrera discovered inconsistencies that the naked eye couldn't detect. The young woman Mercedes was about 16 or 18, too young to be the mother of an 8-year-old. He looked again. He measured again. He compared her features with those of 2 older girls. The results were frightening in their precision. The nose, the shape of the eyes, the angle of the jaw. They weren't those of mother and daughters. They were those of sisters. That single realization broke a century of silence. If Mercedes wasn't her mother, then who was she? And why was a girl asked to replace her mother in an official portrait? To answer that question, Carmen and Dr. Herrera traveled to the parish archives of San Martín de Alhama, the Rodriguez family's ancestral village. Inside the small stone building, among notebooks carefully written in ink from the 10th century, they would begin to uncover what time had tried and failed to bury. A secret hidden in darkness for more than 100 years. The diocesan archivist, Sister Esperanza, had spent decades tending to these ancient parish records, meticulously preserving the official memory of generations of Castilian families. In the soft, filtered light of the archive, Carmen and Dr. Herrera turned page after page of baptismal books, each folio whispering secrets from the past. It was here, among the careful script and fading ink, that the story began to take shape. Tomas Rodriguez Hernandez, the patriarch in the 1911 photograph, had married Francisca Jimenez Morales in 1889. Their union produced 4 children: Isabel in 1890, Mercedes in 1893, Carmen in 1899, and Antonio in 1911, the very same year the photograph was taken. A chill passed through Carmen as she realized the timeline. Mercedes, born in 1893, would have been barely 18 when the photograph was taken. This confirmed Dr. Herrera's earlier analysis. Her youthful face was no illusion. But another darker truth emerged from the records. Francisca, the biological mother, had died in February 1911, scarcely 3 months after Antonio's birth, claimed by the complications of childbirth, a tragedy all too common in rural Spain at the time. Thomas, now widowed with 4 children, faced a crisis that would have shaken any family of the era. Social expectations demanded that the family present an image of stability, that children be cared for within the extended family network, and that appearances be maintained at all costs. And yet, the photograph taken in September 1911, just 6 months after Francisca's death, showed Mercedes standing in the mother's role. The eldest daughter had assumed the weight of maternal authority, her 18-year-old shoulders carrying the burden of family duty, preserving both the image and the reality of a household that could not afford scandal. The records had confirmed what the technical analysis had hinted at. Mercedes was not the mother, but she had become, in every sense that mattered, a surrogate maternal presence for her siblings. Her youth had been quietly surrendered to the relentless demands of circumstance. To understand the full depth of this sacrifice, Carmen and Dr. Herrera sought the living memory of the family. Oral histories passed down across generations in kitchens and around winter fires often reveal truths that the official archives cannot. The first encounter was with Remedios Rodriguez, 89 years old Mercedes' granddaughter and the last living witness of her generation. Her voice trembled as she spoke of her grandmother. "My grandmother Mercedes never married," Remedios recalled. She said she had already raised enough children. "We thought she meant my uncles and aunts, but now I understand. She was speaking of something deeper. She gave up her own life to keep the family together after my great-grandmother Francisca died." Other testimonies painted the same poignant picture. Mercedes remained single all her life, dedicating herself entirely to the care of her younger siblings and later her nephews. In the rigid social fabric of early 20th century Spain, older daughters often assumed such responsibilities, yet Mercedes' devotion went beyond duty. It was a conscious, selfless renunciation of her own personal life. Aurelia Rodriguez, 76. Tomas's great-grandson remembered stories his grandfather Antonio had told, how Mercedes had been more than a sister, how she had become his second mother. "My grandfather Antonio always said Mercedes taught him to walk, to read, and gave him all the maternal love he lost with his biological mother's death," Aurelia recounted. Through these voices, Mercedes's quiet heroism was revealed. The photograph, once a simple record of a family, now bore the weight of sacrifice and love. The pose in the studio, the serene yet uneasy expression, the careful positioning of her hand around her siblings, it was not just a portrait. It was a testament to a life given over entirely to family, a silent act of devotion that history had long overlooked. To truly grasp the weight of Mercedes' sacrifice, one must step back and look at Spain in 1911, a world governed by strict rules and expectations. This was the era of the Bourbon Restoration, a time when social structures were rigid, particularly in the rural stretches of Castilla y León. Families were the fundamental unit of society, both economically and socially. In this context, the death of a mother was more than personal tragedy. It threatened the survival of young children, the stability of the household, and the family's reputation in the eyes of the community. The options before a family like the Rodriguez were grim. Tomás could have remarried, but finding a woman willing to take on 4 children, including a newborn, in an age when infant mortality was high, would have been nearly impossible. And even if such a woman had been found a marriage so soon after Francisca's death, would have been seen as disrespectful, a scandal to the local community. Another option would have been to disperse the children among extended relatives or religious institutions, a practice not uncommon at the time. Yet this choice would have fragmented the family, leaving the children branded as orphans and limiting their prospects for social and marital advancement. And so the family made the third choice, the one we see etched in the 1911 photograph. Mercedes, at just 18, assumed the maternal role. She became the mother in the eyes of the world, protecting the family unit and preserving social appearances, yet sacrificing her own youth and personal aspirations. That photograph, once thought a simple family portrait, took on a new meaning. It was a public statement, a silent declaration that the family had survived tragedy and maintained its structure intact. The records and family testimonies that followed painted the life of Mercedes with astonishing clarity. Her days were entirely devoted to the family rising before dawn to prepare breakfast, arranging the children's clothes, managing the household economy, supervising small agricultural tasks, and in the afternoons, teaching her younger brothers to read and write. Antonio the baby in the photograph remembered her as his second mother, calling her Mama Mercedes, well into adolescence. And she responded with a mixture of pride and quiet melancholy, fully aware of the life she had surrendered. Her decision to remain unmarried, a choice almost unthinkable in early 20th century rural Spain, where marriage was the only path to social and economic security for women, was conscious and deliberate. Parish records show she refused at least 3 documented marriage proposals between 1912 and 1920, including one from Evaristo Hernandez, a young man from a wealthy merchant family, a match that could have secured social advancement. Yet, Mercedes turned them all down, committing herself fully to her role as surrogate mother. Her sacrifice rippled across generations. Antonio grew up under her care with an almost obsessive attachment to maternal figures. He married late, choosing a woman older than himself, perhaps unconsciously seeking what he had lost so early in life. He became a devoted protective father determined to shield his own children from the maternal absence he had once endured. Isabel, Mercedes's older sister, reacted differently. She married young, seeking to establish her own family and avoid the fate of self-sacrifice she had witnessed. Yet she carried guilt all her life, aware of the responsibilities Mercedes had assumed alone. Carmen, the middle sister, occupied a middle ground, marrying at a conventional age, but maintaining a lifelong devotion to caring for Mercedes in her old age. By 2024, when Carmen Rodriguez shared the investigation's findings with surviving family members, the revelation stirred complex emotions. For generations, Mercedes had been remembered as strong, independent, and selfless. But the full magnitude of her youth, lost her personal dreams, set aside, was only now coming to light. Family stories had romanticized her strength, but had softened the reality. An 18-year-old girl had quietly given up her life to hold a family together. And in this reflection, one cannot help but ask how many other silent sacrifices hidden behind the faces in old photographs shape the lives of those who follow. How many stories carefully preserved or whispered in kitchens and around fires wait centuries later to remind us of courage, devotion, and the weight of love in a world that demands endurance. The first family gathering to share the discoveries took place at Remedios' house, Mercedes' 89-year-old granddaughter. 12 members attended, representing 4 generations of Rodriguez descendants. The room was quiet at first as Dr. Herrera presented the technical documentary and testimonial evidence. Then, as the weight of the revelation settled, emotion began to stir. Some felt a sense of validation. Intuitively, they had always sensed something in the family stories didn't quite fit. The hidden inconsistencies in photographs, dates, and oral accounts were now explained. Others felt a deep sense of loss. The grandmother they had imagined as a strong, independent woman was now revealed as an 18-year-old girl who had surrendered her youth, her personal dreams, for the sake of her family. The narrative became more complex, more tragic, yet also more profoundly human. The young women in the family reacted most intensely. Maria Carmen Rodriguez, Mercedes' great-great-granddaughter, 28 years old, spoke with a mixture of admiration and indignation. "It's incredible what she did," she said, "but it's terrible that society forced an 18-year-old girl to give up her entire life. It makes me reflect on the pressures we still face as women to sacrifice ourselves for the family." The men too were affected, though rationally aware they bore no responsibility for events decades before their birth. They felt an emotional burden, a retrospective guilt for the sacrifices Mercedes had made to preserve the family lineage they now enjoyed. And questions arose. If the 1911 photograph had concealed such a profound truth for over a century, what other family secrets might still lie hidden, waiting to be discovered? This new understanding transformed the Rodriguez family's perception of Mercedes' legacy. Her act of selfless devotion was no longer just a romanticized story. It had heroic dimensions. Genealogical research confirmed that without her intervention, the family might have fractured irreparably. Antonio, the baby she had raised, grew to become the patriarch who guided the family through the Spanish Civil War and post-war hardships, maintaining cohesion and survival. The family decided to honor Mercedes publicly. At her resting place in the cemetery of San Martín de Valani, a new tombstone was erected bearing the inscription, "Mercedes Rodriguez Jimenez, 1893-1967, mother and guardian of the family." The 1911 photograph, once merely a period portrait, now symbolized the moment when a teenager assumed a responsibility that would shape the lives of generations. Professional restorations were made and copies distributed to each branch of the family. An annual tradition began every September 15th. The date the original photograph had been taken, descendants gathered to remember Mercedes and reflect on the meaning of personal sacrifice for the collective well-being of the family. Her story inspired contemporary changes as well. Young women in the family expressed their determination to honor her legacy, not by replicating her sacrifices, but by ensuring that no future generation would be forced to choose between personal fulfillment and family duty. Mercedes's tale became a quiet reminder. Behind even the most ordinary family photographs, there may lie stories of courage, devotion, and survival waiting patiently to be understood. The investigation into the 1911 photograph concluded with a transformed understanding of its significance, both historical and emotional. What had begun as a routine consultation had become a rediscovery of a family story resonating through more than a century. Dr. Miguel Herrera documented the case in the Spanish Journal of Photography History, demonstrating how modern photographic analysis can reveal hidden narratives long obscured by time. For Carmen Rodriguez, the experience was transformative. Now she reflected, when I look at this photograph, I don't just see 5 people posing formally. I see a story of love, of sacrifice, and the extraordinary strength of a young woman who made choices that changed the future of her family. The photograph, framed with a plaque recounting Mercedes's complete story, now occupies a place of honor in the family home, a constant reminder that behind every familiar image, a hidden history may await, whispering tales of resilience and devotion. The local museum of Valladolid even organized an exhibition, Hidden Stories in Family Photographs, showcasing the Rodriguez image alongside others, revealing how ordinary family albums can conceal extraordinary narratives. Mercedes Rodriguez, the teenager who posed as a mother in 1911, finally received the recognition her sacrifice deserved. Her story endures as a testament to how the decisions of a single young woman made in a moment of crisis can echo through generations. In that photograph, once so ordinary, we now read the full story. A sister who became a mother, a girl who became a savior, and a moment frozen in time that defined the future of an entire family lineage.